guitar enough. And then you put it on, they stop the rhythm.
It's a mess so far. That would have been your so it's a mess so far. That would have been your so it's a mess so far. That would have been
Hey, kids, what time is it?
It's time for Gezintahait Street.
It is time for Gezintahait Street, and the story for tonight is about receiving their Torah for Simcha. And it connects Simcha's Torah to Matan Torah, which happened on Shavuot. One, Simcha's Torah, the Baditchev Rav, Rabbi Levi Yitzhak, noticed that Shmuel the shoemaker was dancing enthusiastically with the Torah. Knowing that Reb Shmuel was unable to learn Torah at all, Rabbi Levi Yitzhak asks, "Why are you dancing with the Torah so happily?" Reb Shmuel answered, "At your brother's wedding, you dance." In other words, even though it's not my wedding, but that Hashem is getting married with the Jewish people, therefore he's dancing. Our Rebbe says that really simplest Torah is not just a brother's wedding. It's the essential rejoicing of every Jew over the fact that the Torah was given to him personally. In fact, even the most unlearned Jew had been missing when we got the Torah would not have been given. The Torah testifies the Torah that Moshe commanded us is an inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. And like any inheritance, ownership does not depend on the talents and intellect of the inheritor. As long as he is a son, a Jew, he inherits the Torah, and therefore all Jews are equal in receiving the Torah, from the most accomplished scholar to the least learned person. Yet the Rebbe notes something surprising. The rejoicing of the simple man on Simchas Torah has a greater quality than that of the scholar. How do we know? Because Reb Shmuel's enthusiastic dancing affected and increased the simcha felt by the Biddush of a Rav. And this is so because the scholar's rejoicing is mixed with his happiness in what he understands. And this knowledge blocks the level of pure joy that can be expressed by the simple person. As a result, the simple person does not have to rejoice on the same level as the great scholar. Rather, the sage must find a way to rejoice like a simple person. But how's that possible? After all, the scholar knows the Torah and he's happy in the knowledge that he has. We tell him that with all his broad understanding, he has not even approached the essence of the Torah. Rather, the essence of the Torah is hidden from all creation because it is the delight of Hashem in his own essence. And this realization must be internalized on the level of pure faith, which is removed from one's intellect, and in this way, he'll merit to receive the unlimited essence of the Torah, which will in turn add to his own level of understanding. Reb Shmuel referred to a wedding as a metaphor for the receiving of the Torah. So too, the giving of the Torah is described as the wedding of the Holy One, blessed be He, with the children of Israel. A wedding is an example of great happiness. As such, it breaks through all barriers, so that whatever level of Torah he has not yet reached, he will finally achieve as he continues going higher and higher with great strength. We want Mashiach now.
Amazing, Bezalel. That's
Now,
a great story.
The second story for tonight.
But I have a question on the first one.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, from our side, the main thing is just have like a simple simcha and don't worry about getting too complicated.
No, you're supposed to get as complicated and as much knowledge as you can possibly get. And at that point, you should realize that what you have is not comparable to the godliness that's in the Torah. And therefore, you can be happy that you received the Torah as an inheritance. But you have to have all those details, and all that comprehension has to come first, as much as you're possible to achieve.
So is that like we do our best and then Hashem completes the rest of it from the other side, like a gift, something like this?
Could be. Well, it's an inheritance.
More than a gift, an inheritance. Hi, Bezalel.
Hi. Okay, so that was accepting the Torah in a happy way. And then we have to accept it internally. We have to internalize. Once, on Simchas Torah, the Rebbe Menachem Mendel of Haradak was unable to start a kappas because he couldn't say Atar Reisa, which is the first pasuk of the ceremony. He was the elder there, and he had the honor of starting off the ceremony. When asked why he was hesitating, he answered he could see 100 explanations of Atar Reisa that he had not yet understood in depth. And therefore, he did not feel prepared to say the prayer. The Alter Rebbe, who was there, explained to him that even if he plumbed the depth of those 100 explanations, he would see many more explanations he had not yet comprehended. And even if he plumbed the depth of those, he would find new depths without end. The Alter Rebbe's words comforted the Haradak to the point that he was able to say Atar Reisa. Our Rebbe explains this story. He says at first glance it doesn't make sense. Originally he hesitated because of all the explanations he had not yet absorbed. Now he's being told there are deeper and deeper explanations without end. So seemingly the words should not have comforted him, should have made him more aggravated. Not only he doesn't understand these hundreds, there's hundreds of thousands more that he doesn't understand. So why was he comforted? The Rebbe answered that the reason the Haradaker Rebbe had not reached those 100 explanations was not due to his own lacking, but because it's impossible to reach the depth of godliness in the Torah. Yet, no matter how far the distance between the Creator and the creation, Hashem gives himself to a Jew when he learns Torah with toil and effort. Like it says in Tanya, it is me they are taking, Hashem says. Hashem says true. A Jew does not have to exert himself, does have to exert himself to reach his optimum level of understanding, like you just asked. But at that point, Hashem gives himself in that Jew's limited understanding. So according to how much effort we put in, even on our low level, that's the place where Hashem himself meets us. It's clear that when the lacking is on our part, it can't be the fault of the Torah. But when the lacking is because the concept is infinitely far from our grasp, we can be comforted by the fact that Hashem gives us his Torah through our limited intellect. We can access a level reflecting Hashem's essential and infinite enjoyment in his own Torah. We want Mashiach now.
Amen.
Okay,
that's good stories, Bezalel. I enjoyed them.
So we should have a
I
niggun
think
now.
a Leif, you have a flag, you hast a Nigen for uns.
You can remember this old Saturday.
No, I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Hey, oh, I did it, oh, I did it, I did it, I am. I did it, I did it, I did it, I am. Hey, oh, I did it, oh, I did it, did it, I am. Oh, I did it, oh, I did it, did it, bam, bam. Hey, oh, I did it, I am, I am, oh, you know, did it, bam, bam, I am. Hey, oh, you know, did it, I am, oh, I am, bam, bam, oh, you did it, I am, mama, ho, hoy, na, yo, na, my, I am, oh, you did it, hey, oh, my, oh, you did it, oh, la, moy, hoy, I am, oh, I am, oh, he did it, I am, oh, he did it, hoy, la, hey, I am, hoy, na, dam, bam, bam, hey, bam, I am, oh, you na, I am, I am, hey, oh, you na, I am. Hey, lam bam bam bam, hoy, lam bam bam, bam 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 bam. Hey, oh, I did it, oh, I did it, I did it, bam bam. Hey, did it, oh, I did it, I did it, I am. Hey, oh, I did it, oh, I did it, I did it, I am. Hey, did it, I did it, I did it, I am. Yo, na, did I, oh, I am, oh, did I am, I am. Yo, genade dam bam bam, ay, hoy, oh, genade dam bam bam, ay, ahoy, hoy, ay, hey, bam, dam, bam, dam, hoy, la, dam, hey, bam, bam, hoy, ay, hey, bam, dam, bam, dam, hey, la, dam, hey, bam, hoy, na, dam, bam, hey, bam, hoy, na, dam, bam, ay, hey, oh, na, dam, bam, hey, bam, ay, hoy, ay, hoy.
All right.
That was like a good choice there, Ragi.
So,
Mordechai, you need a fire extinguisher.
so we went over this explanation before, but since Gimel Elef has been out of town for 2 weeks, I'm going to go over that explanation again, because next week he's going to tell it to us. And it doesn't hurt to go over it, because we're explaining how Hashem creates the creation from nothing.
Leib, in case you were wondering, the knee replacement went well, Baruch Hashem.
Okay, I was just gonna
So
say.
what went well?
The knee replacement.
I'm gonna
You know, back in the old days when they used to the wooden one they put in originally, they
The
replaced
peg.
they replaced with something a little more sturdy.
Now you can go romping Motzei Shabbos there, Gimel Elef, huh?
You got it.
Now,
Get it? You got
You
it. Got it. You got it.
the metaphor that we've been explaining for the creation of something from nothing is the sun and its ray. Because the ray, when it's included in the sun, doesn't exist. And it only exists when it comes out of the sun. So that's an idea of something from nothing. Now you have a ray, and before there was no ray existing at all. And that ray itself is really nothing, because itself does not become revealed. It only is the source to make stuff happen. However, the metaphor of a sun and the ray does not cover all the angles of the godly action of creating the world from nothing. Because a ray of a sun does not enliven anything. It only shines on it. But Hashem enlivens the worlds he's creating. So the metaphor, the sun and its ray, isn't sufficient to fully explain the light which fills the world. Creation, something for nothing. 3 more metaphors are necessary to explain it fully. The light of a candle, how the soul enlivens the body, and the power of the actor in the act. Power of the actor in the act I can explain to you. I could convince myself when I look up in the heavens that everything is spinning by a coincidence, because there was a big explosion that had certain energy and the matter was affected in a certain way. And all of a sudden there was a perfect system. And I could explain it like that. However, really, the godly actor is the one that's juggling all of those components of the universe. And it's like a person who throws a stone. The arc of the stone and the speed of the stone and where the stone is going to land is all from the hand that threw it, but it is not connected. It appears like a stone is flying by itself. So too the whole universe and how it spins appears to be flying by itself, but really it's Hashem that's making it happen. And that's called the power of the actor in the act. As we said, there are 3 dynamics encompassed in the godly light that fills all worlds. There is light, life, and potential. Potential means the power of the actor in the act. The aspect of light contains 2 manifestations. There is the light that surrounds all the worlds equally, and the light that fills the worlds. So the sun will be like the light that surrounds all the worlds equally, like when the sun shines, everything is lit up equally. And the light of a candle will symbolize the light that fills all worlds. We see that the light of the sun only shines on the earth, and it does not penetrate to combine with the 4 categories of creation. The 4 categories in the creation is the inorganic, the growing stuff, the flora, the animal life, the fauna, and the people who are speaking things.
So what's the inorganic is like rocks and minerals, things
Rocks,
like this?
minerals, water, air. So there's 4 levels, 4 categories of creation. And this is because, as the Rambam says, the stars are spiritual bodies which have no taste or smell. They are higher than any of these 4 categories. There are a 5th category of creation separate from those 4 categories. And those spiritual bodies emit physical light, what we perceive as light. But that light is only physical in comparison to its source. Comparison to its spiritual source, it's a physical light in this world. But it's spiritual compared to the 4 categories of the physical creation. Therefore, it can't combine with them. Light does not combine with the creations. That's what we just said. But through its shine, the power of sight can see them. But when the sun is shining, the power of seeing in the eye can see those categories of creation. So the ray of the sun shines from up to down. And that's a dynamic called the straight light. Not so the light of a candle, which is drawn from the fire element. The 4 elements is earth, air, fire, and water. And the fire element is the most spiritual, and it has its seat under the sun. And it's one of the 4 elements of the creation: fire, water, earth, and air. And even though It's the most spiritual of those elements. It's one of them. Therefore, it can combine with them. How do we see that the fire element combines with earth, air, and water, Gimel Aleph?
How, like when it takes a fuel and binds
When
it?
it burns. Fire burns fuel, exactly. And it burns out the water that's in it and the air that's in it, and it burns it down to its main composite, which is ash. Very good. For example, by fire combining with a wick and oil, like Gimel Aleph just said, light is produced. And according to how much oil there is, that's how long the light will shine. And this light is called a rebounded or a returning light, as opposed to the light of the sun, which is a straight light, because it's from the creation shining up. It's called a rebounded light. It shines from down to up according to the measure of fuel. Therefore, it's encompassed as part of the creation. That's the light of a candle. But both the light of the sun, the straight light, and the light of the candle are only light. They don't enliven anything. But the life of the body from the soul, through its flow into the limbs of the body, actually enlivens that body and those limbs. So too, Hashem flows into the creations to enliven them. They're alive. Like Einstein said, something's moving. It's not just dead stuff that Hashem created, which could be accomplished through light. There's actually life going into everything, keeping it alive. Just like the soul enlivens the limbs of the body. Light does not unify with that on which it shines. It only shines on it. Like, for example, when candlelight illuminates a room, it doesn't make any change in the physicality of the room, and the light does not change from its spirituality. So this manifestation of energy is designated only as shining in the room. It's not enlivening the room. Not so when the soul enlivens the body. It unifies with the limbs, right? How the soul enlivens the body.
Yeah, it
goes
and makes them move.
How Mendel moves you around.
Yeah, and makes it see and all kinds of things.
Who's Mendel?
It's my neshama's name.
My
neshama's name.
He's the third.
Okay.
He's the third voice.
Oh.
It unifies with the limbs of the body, in each one according to its particular function. Therefore, the life force of the soul changes from a spiritual life to giving life to physicality. And the limbs change from being not enlivened to being enlivened, from the life force of the soul that's now enlivening them. And the light of life comes into the limbs in levels, each one according to its function. The brain has more light, and the foot has less light. Not so the outspread of light, which shines equally, like how the sun shines in the world. The way the light comes into the particular limbs is called a way of indressing. But how the light comes into each particular limb is not a surrounding light, but it's an indressing light. But the level of enlivenment, even though it's felt in the particular limbs, nevertheless, it's a simple light. And the way the limbs grasp that life is simple. They all feel alive from the soul that enlivens them. The toes and the nose are equally alive.
The nose is alive. Ay, 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 ay.
Like the toes is alive.
Ay, 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 ay.
Now, moving to the metaphor of power potential, the power of the actor in the act, not so the particular powers like the power of movement in the hand, that has a particular life. Even though the hand is alive like the ears are alive equally, But the hand has a particular light that's in it that allows it to move, in which the general life is contracted. That's going to be the power of the actor in the act to give power to the individual limb to perform its particular function, or the power of intellect in the brain to think. And these particular powers are manifest through the outer vessels called the capillaries. The capillaries bring the life of the blood into the particular limbs, and with that, they bring in the power of that particular limb to do its particular job.
So the blood then doesn't bring the general light
The blood
power
is the general life. But how the blood goes into the particular limbs through the capillaries.
So this is what brings
Causes
it. So
the particular
this one could
power.
hear and this one could
So
move.
how it is in the blood, that's going to be like the chayos, like the life. And how it gets into the particular limbs, that's going to be the power of the actor in the act. Not so how the life is dressed in the inner vessels. Those are the outer vessels, the capillaries. The inner vessels is the nerves. And the pumping vessels, they're the intermediate vessels that carry the blood.
Here's to Gemalat the knife.
The veins and arteries,
The knife.
which carry only the general life, not the particular power. So the veins and arteries carry the blood, which is the general life of the whole body, in which the toes and the nose is equally alive. But when it's delivered through the capillaries into the particular limb, then that's when the particular limb receives its power to do its particular function. The interesting of the soul in the blood is in general a power is a power, which is the general hidden power to measure out the particular powers which become revealed. Like it says, the blood is the soul. And that soul in the blood is called nefesh. And it has its particular seat in the liver area. Not so the spirit, which is called ruach, spirit of life, which is in the heart. And the level in our metaphors of enlivenment, as opposed to the power of the actor in the act, that's how it is in the heart. And the highest level of the soul in the body is called the neshama, and has its seat in the brain, what we call light. So you see that in the body, there are levels of light. You have the light of life, the light of enlivenment, light of life in the brain, the light of enlivenment in the heart, and the power of the actor in the act in the liver area. But that light in the brain is an inner light, like the light of a candle. And the surrounding light, which is called chaya, like the light of the sun in our metaphor. So we see that really in all the metaphors are included all the other metaphors, because it's one godly action of creating the world from nothing. The only thing is that godly action has to be explained through various metaphors so our limited intellect can grasp what's going on. So we see that the metaphor of the soul enlivening the body really contains the godly action being explained by all three metaphors. But in how the soul enlivens the body, the metaphor of light is hidden because it's enlivenment, it's not light. So we explain it with the sun and the candle. So we give the metaphor of the sun and the candle to understand how this enlivenment comes in a way of light. And Gimel Aleph is going to go over this for us next time. Okay.
So we have a niggin mitzvah.
Happy to.
What we got here? I see you have the lead sheet for something. Is this the Boltaver?
I wouldn't mind doing that now. But
What's this? What's this one? What you got there? Oh, let's do the Boltaver first, and then we go back to another fast. Okay.
What is gone already, huh?
I think he was here somewhere.
That's nice that he came.
Need a little tiny bit more volume on that. There we go.
If you gotta go, you gotta go. You did great. You livened us up.
Oh boy.
I asked Dovbear to come. You know, it's a shame. He's a talented guy. He should join us in the Ukraine.
We should. Hey yo na 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 mo ye di ma ye no. Hey yo na 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 mo ye di ma ye no. Ahoy, ahoy, yo, ye, de, ma, oh, ye, na, 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 mo, ye, de, ma, te, yo, ye, na, 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 oh, ye, de, ma, oh, Yanadam, oh, yo, ye, mam, te, oh, Yanadam, ahoy, yo, yedimam, te, yo, Yananoy, yo, oh, Yanayam, oh, yedimam, te, yo, Yanayam, oh, yedimam, oh, Yanayam, oh, yedimam, oh, Yanayam, oh, yedimam, ay, aladam, oh, yo, yedimam, te, ya, Yananoy, yo, oh, Yanayam, oh, yedimam, oh, Yanayam, oh, yedimam, oh, Yanayam, oh, yedimam, oh, Yanayam, oh, yedim, oh, Yanayam, oh, Yanayam, oh, yo, yedimam, te, ya, Gotta love that niggin.
Now, we're going to explain this process that we just explained according to the godly spheros in the higher world. The subject of these metaphors, the godly dynamic of light that fills our world, there are three qualities. There's light, and the power of the actor in the act, like we explained. And what this means is the godly sphere of Malchus of Atzilus, which means the aspect of Hashem's royalty. Malchus means the king. And that's the expression that through which he makes a decree, ordering the coming into being of the creation and its parameters. So it's this godly level called Malchus, called royalty, which makes the decree, which creates the creation, lets there be light. And it's called the light that fills our world, to enliven them and bring them into being. So there's two actions in this godly dynamic. It enlivens the world and it brings them into being from nothing. And each one according to its standing in the heavenly and earthly array. Like it says, your kingship, Malchuscha, is a kingship over all worlds. And also, you enliven all of them. Because when we use the term you, it indicates the level of divine royalty, which is Malchus. When we talk to Hashem, when we say you, the first two letters of the word you in Hebrew are the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph to Saf. An inclusion of all speech. The letters include speech, which will make up the godly decree of creation. From Aleph to Saf, the letters of the alphabet. While the last letter in you is a hey, indicates the divine breath, which animates those letters of speech. And that divine breath comes through the 5 speech centers in the mouth. I don't think I remember all of them. It's the lips, the tongue, the palate, the throat. I'm not sure of actually, but there's 5 speech centers that form the letters. And enlivening those letters is the breath, the godly breath that comes in and enlivens that world that comes out through this letter. And those 22 letters and the 5 breath of the mouth is the source of all letters of speech. And this level of Malchus, of royalty, enlivens all the creations through the myriad combinations of the 22 letters of the alphabet. The combinations of the letters is without measure. So Malchus enlivens and brings into being uncountable creations in each species and uncountable categories of creation. Because through the 22 letters, the way they're all combined one with the other, I think it comes out to 231 combinations. But then, for example, you have the letter Aleph, and the letter Aleph on a piece of paper is a hand that's up and a hand that's down, and a line down the middle, and that's an Aleph. But when you say Aleph, it's Aleph Lamed Pei. It's spelled a certain way. And that Aleph in Aleph Lamed Pei can also be spelled out to the Aleph Lamed Pei. And the Pei can be spelled out to be Pei Hey. And all of those can combine to make an uncountable number of combinations. And those combinations make the uncountable number of creations. And it all comes out from the godly speech from the king who creates everything from nothing with his decree. And that level of Malchus, the godly royalty, has 2 levels. How it is in Atzilus, in the godly world of godly unity, where it's still separate from enlivening creations and bringing them into being. And then how it descends to become the crown of the created worlds. And it descends through a curtain which separates the godly world of Atzilus and the created separate worlds. Because the godly world of Atzilus is a world of godly unity, there can't be anything separate. So there's a curtain that separates it from the godly desire to have a separate world. And now a separate world can be brought into being. And that's what it says. Your kingship, which is Malchus in the world of Atzilus, is a kingship over all worlds. That's how Malchus descends to be the crown of creation, to bring the worlds into being from nothing and enliven them. Like we say, your name is exalted. Name goes on Malchus, which will indicate Malchus in the world of Atzilus, which is exalted from the creations, and only a ray shines on the heaven and earth, which is the reflection of Malchus, which creates and enlivens the creations from nothing. So you have Malchus, the name like it is in the world of Atzilus, and then you have the curtain that separates the world of Atzilus to the created worlds. And Malchus comes down through the curtain, and a reflection from it is what creates the separate worlds. Now, the outflow of Malchus of Atzilus, as it becomes the crown of the created world of Bria, is broken up into 30 vessels. You hear this, Gimel Aleph?
Yeah, tidy.
That's like connected with your name, Gimel.
But why is it tidy, Bitzal? I thought there's only 10 sephiras.
Because each sphere has an inner level, middle level, and an outer level. Like every vessel, like this cup, you have the empty space, that's going to be the inner level of this vessel. And then you have the walls that hold it in and define how it's shaped. And then you have the outer part of the vessel through which you can pick it up and use it.
Well, Bitzal, I know Einstein, but that sounds like it makes tidy.
3 times 10 is 30. The 10 inner vessels become the soul, the neshama of the world of creation, the world of Bria. And the 10 intermediate ones become the soul of the world of Yetzirah. And the 10 outer ones become the soul of the world of action, Asiya. So once you see it's a soul, and once it's a godly vessel from the world of Atzilus, that is what enlivens the world. That's what he said. The way Hashem enlivens the worlds is being described here, and it happens through the vessels of Malchus of Atzilus.
So the vessels of Malchus of Atzilus become the souls of the other worlds?
Because they're godly, and that's how they can enliven the world, because only Hashem can enliven the world. So even the 10 outer vessels of Malchus, as it becomes the crown of the 3 lower worlds, becomes the inner vessel, the soul of the lowest world of action. And those 30 vessels are godly. They're vessels of Malchus of Atzilus. Therefore, they're able to enliven those 3 worlds. They become the soul of those worlds to enliven those worlds. So that's the object of the metaphor of how the soul enlivens the body, how Hashem enlivens the world through these vessels of Malchus of Atzilus. Now, the object of the metaphor of the power of the actor in the act, for which there's a second metaphor of one who throws a stone. In flight, the stone is separate from the hand that threw it. And even though the whole arch, the speed, and the landing of the stone are controlled and directed by that hand, until it's possible to think that the stars and planets are orbiting of their own volition, or just as a result of some random natural forces. Not so the intermediate, so the inner vessels are the vessels of Malchus of Atzilus, which becomes the neshama of the 3 worlds. Not so the intermediate and the outer vessels of the created worlds. They're not godly anymore. They're separate creations, which are called angels. or the limbs of the Shekhinah. For example, the outer vessel of kindness of the world of Bria is called the angel Michael. The outer vessel of kindness, not the inner vessel of kindness, which will be what enlivens kindness, but the outer vessel of kindness will be the manifestation of how kindness is connected to worlds. And that's called the angel Michael. He's the general source of all love, sweetness, and kindness found in the created worlds. And he's the captain of a cohort of 180,000 messenger angels of love and kindness.
And permissiveness.
And permissiveness. For example, a cup of tea with some sugar in it, the sugar that sweetens that tea has eventually its spiritual source in the angel Michael. The sweet spot on the baseball bat has eventually its spiritual source in the angel Michael. A sweet voice, a sweet singing voice, has its source in the angel Michael. But that angel Michael is separate from the life that is giving it life. It feels separate and it's limited. It only has 180,000 messengers. In the same way, the outer vessel of strength and strictness in the world of Bria and creation is the angel Gabriel, the source of fear and awe, who directs a cohort of 180,000 messengers of fear. And these angels are designated power or potential. It's the power of the actor in the act, because the angel has nothing for itself. It's only a hatchet in the hands of the chopper. So it expresses the power of the actor in the act. The actor is the one who throws a stone. The act is done by this created being, this angel, but he has no free will. He just does what he's directed, because each one is seemingly the potential and power behind all the particular manifestation of love and fear that will branch from them. So they're called the power of the actor in the act. Nevertheless, they're called particular powers compared to the real general power, the source of all power, which is Malchus of Atzilus, as it becomes the crown of the world of creation. And Malchus is called the power of all potential powers, the koach of all kochos, and it's called by the name Elohim. When you refer to God as the Lord, as Elohim, it is indicating this power of Malchus to give strength and potential to all the limited creatures that are going to come out. And the level of godliness of how Malchus of Atzilus becomes dressed in the crown of Bria is called the power of the actor in the act. Do we do a nigga now?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, how about a new one?
I remember it. It's not killer.
No, it's coming off of mine.
Yeah. Okay, go. That was particularly chunky.
Very nice. Now, the action of the creations is controlled by those angels. But the real power behind that action is the godly actor. Hashem is completely hidden in the created world. It's called Elohim, called the Lord. It's called the power of the actor in the act, and it creates all creations in the created world, whether spiritual, like our friend, the angel Michael, which is the spiritual source of all love and kindness, even though he himself is created from nothing. Michael is a creation. Nevertheless, the purpose for which he is created is to be the source of all love and sweetness. Or whether we're speaking about the physical recreations in this world of action. It's that level of Elohim, that level of hidden godliness that's making it all happen. And they're all brought into being by the light and power of the godly actor embodied in Malchus of Atzilus as it becomes dressed in the crown of creation. As we explained, the outer vessel is a creation from nothing, that angel, Michael and Gabriel, which cannot of itself create something from nothing, but the power of Malchus of Atzilus that is dressed and hidden in that outer vessel, in that angel, uses that angel like a hatchet in the hand of a chopper. The hatchet has no will of its own. It's completely nullified to the chopper, like the stone that's thrown. So too these angels. And that's the power of the actor in the act, like the power of the hand to make something happen which can never happen on its own, which by us is called something from something. The hand could take a bottle of water and pour the water into a glass. It's something from something, where only the form is changed. Only the form is changed. Like you take a silver bar and make it into a cup. But Hashem accomplishes something from nothing. He makes the bar and the cup, which tells us that the whole existence of the creations is something completely new. And the power to accomplish it is essential power of Hashem, because he alone has unlimited power and capability to bring something into existence from nothing, without a middleman. And to this power, there is no metaphor that it can be dressed in. It can be sensed by the heart's desire, but can't be expressed in words. Thank you, everybody. That will be all for tonight.
Kelodin.
Huh?
Kelodin, no?
Oh.
Hey, ya 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 ya, my ya 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 ya, my ya 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 ya, my diddy dam. Ay 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 ay, my ya 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 yo you na, my ya 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 ya, mo you diddy dam. Hey la 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 ya 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 ya, my la la la, the light is the doy. Oh you na la la, my la 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 la, mo you na la yam. I like it, dam. Oh, you know, Hey, bam 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 bam. Hey, ya 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 ya, my ya 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 yo you know. Hey, ya 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 ya, mo you did it down. Ay ya 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 ya, my ya 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 yo you know. Hey, ya 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 ya, mo you know it down. Hey, ya 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 ya, mo you know it ya, my ya 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 ya. Oh yeah, la 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 yeah, 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 my yeah, la la, the light is the down. Oh yeah, nam, oh yeah, nam, oh yeah, nam, my yeah, yeah. Hey, yeah, 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 oh yeah, nam, oh yeah, nam, oh yeah, nam, mama. You know, late for the Gezintahait street, my friend part, you're gonna have to make it louder. Because that's what's coming up, and you gotta be, we have to go out with a big bang.
Okay.